Our group we have presented to Parliament. So, Mr. Kutuampa.
Thank you, Professor Kalkari, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the media. We have invited you here today to share a memorandum we have presented to Parliament on the promotion of proper human sexual rights and Ghanaian Family Values Bill 2021. In our memorandum, we express our opposition It's okay. Now, in our memorandum, we express our position to the passage of a bill which we believe threatens to undermine the rights and freedoms Ghanaians have fought for and gained as citizens of a democratic republic. We therefore call on the freedom-loving people of Ghana to ask their representatives in Parliament to reject this dangerous bill and ask you to disseminate our views on the issue. Our opposing the bill is contained in the text of a 30-page memorandum we submitted to Parliament to reject this dangerous bill and ask you to disseminate to the public our views on this issue. Our rationale for opposing this bill is contained in a 30-page memorandum we have presented to Parliament on 30th September 2021, which we urge you to read in full. However, we would like to give you a summary of what is contained in the memorandum we submitted. Now, the LGBTQ plus bill currently before Parliament is a major step backward for democracy, inclusiveness, the protection of minorities and the vulnerable in our society, and of fundamental human rights in Ghana. The bill constitutes a flagrant violation of the rights and freedoms guaranteed under the Constitution, and in our view is an existential threat to our republic and its core values, as set out in the preamble, Chapter 5 on fundamental human rights, and Chapter 6 on the directive principles of state policy of the 1992 Constitution. Now, the bill violates virtually all the key fundamental freedoms guaranteed under the Constitution. Article 11, Article 15, Article 18, Article 21, Article 26, namely the right to freedom of speech and expression, the right to freedom of thought, conscience, and belief, including academic freedom, the freedom to practice any religion and to manifest such in practice, which implies the freedom not to practice any religion, the right to assemble, including the freedom to take part in processions and demonstrations, the freedom of association and the right to organize, the right to freedom from discrimination, and the right to human dignity. In essence, the provisions of the bill are so egregious in their violation of these fundamental human rights and freedoms that it beggars belief that they could be introduced as a bill in the House of Parliament. With all due respect, we consider it unbecoming of the Parliament of our Republic, one of the key pillars of our constitutional democracy, to initiate such a fanatical crusade of intolerance and extremism in the 21st century, in direct contravention of the provisions of our democratic constitution. Furthermore, this bill, which has been laid before Parliament as a private member's bill, in fact imposes a significant charge on the consolidated fund or other public funds. By the express terms of Article 108, however, a bill that does this cannot lawfully be introduced or acted upon by Parliament as a private member's bill. Accordingly, the introduction of the LGBTQ plus bill as a private member's bill in Parliament, irrespective of merits or demerits, constitutes a direct and gross violation of Article 108A(2) and is therefore unconstitutional. Now, the bill in its memorandum quotes the view expressed by the National House of Chiefs that being LGBTQ plus is, quote, a taboo and inhuman under Ghanaian culture. That statement, with all due respect to our traditional rulers, stigmatizes the very being and identity of LGBTQ plus persons and denies them their humanity. It directly violates Article 15(1) of the Constitution, that the dignity of all persons shall be inviolable. Importantly, by stigmatizing LGBTQ plus persons as inhuman, the bill reinforces hatred for those persons and implies they have no place in our society and deserve to be eradicated. If you are inhuman, you have no place in our society as a human being. Under Article 21(4)(e) of our Constitution, any action that incites hatred, I'm quoting, that incites hatred against other members of the community is prohibited. But that is exactly what this bill is doing. It's targeting LGBTQ plus as inhuman, to be eradicated, in contradiction E of our Constitution. The bill in Clause 2 goes of criminalizing and prohibiting ideas, views, and expressions promoting or advocating support for LGBTQ plus practices, including ideas in films or broadcasting of LGBT comments or opinions on the internet, even text messages that express support or sympathy, solidarity with LGBTQ plus identity, cause, views, and activities. All these are criminal offenses. Under Clause 12, any person who engages in any of these acts commits an offense which, on summary conviction, is liable to imprisonment for not less than 5 years or more than 10 years. Just to send a text message or even report this thing under the law, if it became law, it would be an offense, and all of you could be charged and sent to prison for 10 years under this law, this primitive law. This court directly violates Article 21(1)(a) of the Constitution, which provides thus, quote, all persons are entitled to freedom of speech and expression which shall include the freedom of the press and other media, unquote. Enforce all of us here expressing our opinions on this matter, and those of you whose job it is to report news and information would risk going to jail. Clause 15 of the bill seeks to disband existing LGBTQ organizations, and Clause 16 prohibits the formation or registration of groups, associations, or organizations set up to engage in any activity having anything to do with LGBTQ plus causes. Anyone who does so is liable upon summary conviction to imprisonment for a term of not less than 6 years and not more than 10 years. Clause 15, we submit, is in direct contravention of Article 21(1)(e) of our Constitution, which provides thus, quote, all persons shall be entitled to freedom of association, which shall include freedom to form or join trade unions and other associations, national and international, for the protection of their interests. The bill flagrantly violates also the fundamental right to assemble, including the right to take part in processions and demonstrations, as guaranteed in Article 21(1)(d) of our Constitution. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, the sponsors of the bill have not provided and cannot provide a shred of evidence to demonstrate any harm that LGBTQ persons as consenting adults and their activities pose to society, which would have provided a reasonable justification for such extraordinarily high-handed assault on their fundamental human rights and the rights of other citizens. Furthermore, the sponsors fail woefully to provide any empirical evidence to support their attempt to show that the provisions of the bill are necessary for the protection of any countervailing public interest or individual right. So they resort to so-called African cultural values and religious values, which they claim the overwhelming majority of Ghanaians subscribe to. However, what the bill sponsors singularly misconceive is the following. Protecting fundamental human rights does not simply mean protecting the beliefs and interests of the overwhelming majority. It also means protecting the rights and freedoms of minorities and historically vulnerable groups such as LGBTQ plus persons. Article 21(4)(e) implicitly enjoins Parliament to enact laws that protect the vulnerable and popular minorities, fellow members of our community, from being targeted. This provision essentially invites the police and neighbors to engage in acts that endanger and violate the privacy and property rights of such persons. It also places a duty on a parent to report a son or a daughter or siblings to report their brothers and sisters on suspicion of their sexuality to the police. So even a father cannot show love to a son or daughter who happens to be LGBTQ. On the contrary, he is compelled by the law to report the son or such son or daughter to the police so that he or she will be arrested and charged with a crime under the Republic. On the question of Ghanaian cultural and traditional values, the sponsors of the bill conveniently refused to acknowledge that not all of our cultural and traditional values can stand up to the demands of inclusiveness, diversity, and fundamental rights within a democratic republic such as Ghana. For instance, traditional Ghanaian values do not fully accept persons with disability as persons having full and equal rights as those without disability. Indeed, some communities have been known to practice ritual killing of children born with disabilities because they are deemed to be possessed by evil spirits. Similarly, the custom and values of some communities, especially in the past, have also considered twins as an abomination, with the result that they, by custom and tradition, had to be killed as evil, just like how the bill's sponsors consider LGBTQ plus person as inhuman and evil. The infamous witch camps in northern Ghana and the Trokosi system in the Volta region are products of our beliefs and tradition. In parts of Nigeria and Eastern Africa also, albinos are targeted and murdered because of their pigmentation based on similar false cultural beliefs. So, ladies and gentlemen of the media, the fact that these are part of Ghanaian and African cultural and traditional norms and beliefs do not make them acceptable in modern Ghana, in a just and humane society, and in a free democratic republic. And this is why Article 39(2) of our Constitution provides as follows: the state shall ensure that appropriate customary and cultural values are adopted and developed as an integral part of the growing needs of the society as a whole, and in particular, practices which are injurious to the health and well-being of the persons are prohibited. So our Constitution requires that practices that endanger the well-being of people are prohibited. An appeal to Ghanaian cultural values and traditional norms as a basis for the bill is by itself, therefore, neither a necessary nor sufficient justification for a bill that is undoubtedly driven by totalitarian and authoritarian ethos and religious fundamentalist and extremist notions. Such an appeal is also no justification for a bill that seeks to impose on the proud people of Ghana a decidedly sectarian and monolithic view of, quote, proper human sexual rights, whatever that means. The promoters of the bill seek to whip up their misguided version of Ghanaian cultural nationalism by raising the scare that LGBTQ plus rights are alien to Ghanaian culture and tradition and are being promoted by a morally depraved West. Now, in the first place, it is Ghanaian LGBT persons, Ghanaian citizens, who are fighting for social tolerance and acceptance, having suffered in the obscurity of darkness and social exclusion for years. Secondly, it is simply not true that LGBTQ plus tendencies and inclinations are foreign to Ghanaian or African society. This is simply not true. Indeed, as a matter of fact, LGBTQ persons have been a well-known secret in Ghanaian and African families and societies for a long time, and not just the product of any external advocacy. Now, the bill is grounded on the unscientific and speculative notion that a person's sex is always determined or determinable at birth, and that sex is either male or female. While this may be a notion encouraged by some religions, any open-minded gynecologist, medical doctor, or biological scientist knows that a person's gender is not always determined at birth, nor is it necessarily binary by nature. It is not true that nature only produces male or female. That's a scientific fact. Nature produces persons that you cannot fit into one of these two categories. So, from their viewpoint, that makes them inhuman. Now, so, for example, it's a scientific fact that in all societies, there are persons born intersex with reproductive or sexual anatomies that do not fit the boxes of male or female. That's a scientific fact. In our respective view, this fact alone destroys the very foundation upon which the bill is built, that men and women or human beings at birth are either men or women. And therefore, if you are not that, your identity needs to be criminalized. That foundation is gone. Now, the bill again argues that LGBTQ plus activities threaten the heterosexual family unit as the foundation of society, and that permitting LGBTQ activities to flourish is a threat to society and even the human species. The proposers of this far-reaching claim, however, have not provided any data or evidence to suggest that there is such a threat beyond a resort to some dogmatic religious tenets and so-called Ghanaian family values. In our respectful view, any serious discussion of or concern for maintaining Ghanaian family values ought first of all to begin with addressing the rampant issue of pregnancy of young women and teenagers out of wedlock and their abandonment after the act by their male partners. That is one of the most critical acts that clearly undermine Ghanaian family values. Another rampant social activity that undermines the family as a unit and family values in Ghana are extramarital relationships. Yet, the apostles of Ghanaian family values are conveniently unconcerned about these manifest realities. In its attempt to demonize LGBTQ plus persons, the bill seeks to associate LGBTQ plus persons with pedophilia. Yet, the memorandum to the bill has not provided any material evidence linking LGBTQ persons with the abuse of minors. It needs to be stated that current law rightly prohibits, on the pain of grave punishment, any sexual relationship with a child, whether heterosexual or homosexual. So we don't need it. As we all know, news reports continue to confirm public anxiety about the crime of defilement, which is mostly perpetrated by heterosexuals. Some Christians and Muslims, and here we need to be clear that we recognize fully the significant contributions that the Muslim and Christian community have made to Ghana and its development. That is not the issue here. But some Christians and Muslims may find LGBTQ plus activities offensive and may detest them. That is all well and good. That is their view. They may not like them. They may find them offensive. As persons with strong religious view, although such attitudes, in our view, do little in promoting a diverse, tolerant, and inclusive society. But let it be stated that ours is a secular democratic republic. Ghana is a secular democratic republic, not a theocratic Christian or Islamic republic like the Talibans would want to make Afghanistan, or an African traditional monarchy or chiefdom. That is not what Ghana is. Ghana is a secular democratic republic with rights guaranteed for all citizens. So our constitution forbids the imposition of religious dogma on Ghanaians, whether Christian or Islamic or traditional. Article 21 guarantees and embraces religious diversity while guarding the freedom of people not to be bound by any particular belief or dogma. That is their choice. Now, the main proponents of the bill, the National Coalition for Proper Human Sexual Rights and Family Values, decry foreign imposition. Yet it is undeniable that the coalition has, in fact, collaborated with and received considerable assistance from the Western Global Anti-Gay and Anti-Abortion Network, the self-styled World Congress of Families. Indeed, it is no secret, especially to you journalists, that this World Congress of Families organized a regional conference in Accra in October, November 2020 in Ghana. This self-styled World Congress of Families has been active in promoting the passage of similar repressive anti-LGBTQ laws in Nigeria, Cameroon, Uganda, and elsewhere in Africa, Eastern Europe, and Latin America. Let us assure you, therefore, that there's nothing original or homegrown about this bill. It takes inspiration from Western right-wing crusaders and follows a template used in recent years in such places as the Russian Federation, Moldavia, and Hungary, countries not particularly famous for their democratic credentials. Just as the bill violates Ghana's constitutional provisions and fundamental human rights, it also violates a number of international and ECOWAS and African human rights instruments and norms. Little wonder, therefore, that the African Commission on Human and People's Rights, in its resolution 275, and I'll invite all of you to go and look at that resolution, in 275, passed in 2014, condemned systematic attacks by the state, just as this bill is trying to do, by the state and other non-state actors against persons on the basis of their imputed or real sexual orientation or gender identity. It additionally made discrimination against LGBTQ persons a violation of their fundamental human rights. This is the African Commission, our own Continental Commission on Human Rights, saying this. There's nothing foreign about this. It's our commission that is making this statement. A number of African courts have also upheld the rights of LGBT plus persons, that is progressive African courts, to protection against discrimination and the enjoyment of their fundamental human rights. Furthermore, African states, notably South Africa, Cape Verde, Sao Tome, Principe, Lesotho, Seychelles, and Angola have passed legislation abolishing the criminalization of homosexuality. How much more Ghana, which is claims to be the leading beacon of democracy on our continent, going a step backwards. In July this year, the Speaker of the ECOWAS Parliament, in an interview with the Accra-based TV3, advised that Ghana, as a beacon of democracy in a troubled region, should be cautious in passing this dangerous bill because it risks promoting fear, insecurity, and undemocratic principles. This is the Speaker of ECOWAS Parliament. We seriously urge our parliamentarians to take this warning from the Speaker of a Parliament that they are represented in very, very seriously. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, as far back as November 1992, that's a few months after our constitution came into force, in the seminal judgment of Ghana's Supreme Court in the New Patriotic Party versus the Inspector General of Police, which affirmed the right of people to assemble and demonstrate and protest against the repressive public order decree. Amwaseki, JSC, one of the judges on that panel, as if anticipating these dark days that our republic is threatened with today, stated in a compelling and deeply insightful dicta at pages 470 to 471 of the Ghana Law Reports 1993-94, two Ghana Law Reports. And again, I invite you journalists to go and read it. Page 470 to 471 of the Ghana Law Reports 1992 to 93, page volume 2. He said the following: quote, "In countries that practice true democracy, supporters and opponents of every conceivable cause are given freedom to associate and express their views. In the end, some have succeeded, and their unpopular demands have actually become majority wishes and have been recognized. The examples are the anti-slavery groups in the 18th century and the 19th century America, and the suffragettes of both countries at the beginning of this century, that is the 20th century, not the 21st century. In this day and age, it is necessary for us to see that consent, not force, is the basis of a just society, and that it is not for government or our neighbor to tell us what to think or feel or do. Except in a time of war, when a state of emergency has been declared, it cannot be right for any agency of the executive to suppress the free expression of any opinion, however unpopular that opinion may be. The believer in absolutism, the anarchists, those who oppose equal rights for women, and yes, lesbians and homosexuals too, are all entitled to free expression of their views and their right to assemble and demonstrate in support of those views. Once the state takes for itself the power to license associations, assemblies, and processions, it resorts to support of the status quo. And the only way of changing the prevailing state of affairs is by the use of force, unquote. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, that decision was delivered as far back as 1992. It is our view that the provisions of the LGBTQ plus bill are in their totality egregious in their violations of fundamental human rights guaranteed under Constitution, and if passed into law, will be unconstitutional, null and void. Worse still, the criminalization of LGBTQ plus persons, their identity, activities, associations, allies, rather than promoting public health, can only drive such persons into the shadows, where they will have no access to public health or public education. No compelling public interest is served by the attempts to drive LGBTQ persons underground and render them social outcasts or second-class citizens. And it's important to say this because we fully recognize that fundamental human rights are not absolute. There are limitations to them. But those limitations can only be justified if they are reasonably necessary for the protection of the rights of others, for public morality, public interest, and bill for the protection of proper human for difference in our society. We urge that the bill, with respect, be firmly rejected by the Parliamentary Select Committee on Constitutional, Legal, and Parliamentary Affairs, and by Parliament as a whole. It has no place in our constitutional democratic republic. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kutuampa. That is the statement. The media people will get copies. There are a number of key issues here. First and foremost, the premise that LGBTQ people are human beings. Unless you recognize that they are human beings, then you will support a bill like this. Secondly, some of the disturbing issues are that a parliament constituted on the constitution that we have would tolerate a bill like this, which clearly undermines all what Parliament is about for our democratic republic. But there are other institutions that we ought also to express concern about. The ruling MPP party calls itself a liberal party. How can any serious-minded liberal party tolerate or support something like this that undermines everything that progressive liberalism is about? Similarly, I do not know any civilized social democratic government or party that will promote and propose such a bill. And so we urge you, the media, as Mr. Kutuampa has said, to look at all these references. But you see, the promoters of bills like this, they are a danger to the society because they know that the majority of citizens in any democracy, whether it's Ghana or Sweden or wherever, do not and ought not necessarily know what is in a constitution. The majority of the Ghanaian people, the majority even of media people, it's even possible that the majority of lawyers have not and will not read what is in the bill. You see, so proponents of such things prey on the ignorance of the majority of the people, and all they do is use fear. And because homosexuality and allied social practices are very old, prejudiced acts, they prey on the emotions of people. We have to be vigilant. This is how democracies can be undermined using democratic, what do you call it, democratic, yes, processes and so on. We are here, and if we go to sleep, it is our parliament that will undermine the democracy that we have. That is why we concerned individuals here are alerting our society through you. The issue here is not about whether you like or dislike homosexuals, lesbians, and so on. The issue here is our democracy, our human rights, and the implications such a dangerous bill have for our own rights and freedoms. So the floor is open, and your questions are accepted, are welcome. And any of my colleagues here may also join in further elucidating on. But again, let me remind you that you should give your WhatsApp address, and we'll send copies of the original document to you for your study. Let me also inform you that Parliament reconvenes on Tuesday the 19th of this month. We are going to publish the full text in the daily graphic, and people will see it and pull it out and keep it and study. In that week also, we are proposing or planning to organize a symposium, a public symposium, and to invite the proponents of this danger to join us. If they are tolerant people, and they want open discussion of their heinous ideas, we are inviting them to join the debate. So please keep a note of that. We will announce all of these things. They are all part of activities we think we must do in public so that this pernicious law does not come to be passed. And we should also note that if Parliament makes the mistake to pass such a bill, and our president assents such a bill, that president is therefore under that he swore to this country to protect our rights. So it's a danger for everybody who supports such a bill. So your questions are welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, please. Identify yourself first, please. Okay. I don't know, my colleagues can answer here, or Techua, Kojo, any of you,
yes,
you want to?
Thank you very much. You want the microphone?
Yeah, come.
So thank you very much for your question. Our contention is that the bill is unnecessary, that we have sufficient provisions in our law to deal with any offenses. We are saying that to be a lesbian or gay is not an offense. That is an identity. It is guaranteed by the Constitution. So we are not here to revise the bill. We are saying that it is not necessary. One of the fears that has been expressed in this country is about the legalization of same-sex marriage. That is not what we are calling for. And we are saying that our law right now does not permit a marriage of same-sex couples. So we do not understand what this bill is about. If you are saying that somebody's identity is inhuman, what is the person supposed to do? We are saying that homosexuality is not pedophilia, that there is sufficient provision in our laws to guard against pedophilia, to guard against defilement, and we know that the majority of defilement cases in our country are committed by heterosexual persons, and there is sufficient provision in the law to deal with that. So it is not about, we're just saying that, as I think Kwame has tried to show, that this is playing into, it's a fear-mongering. In fact, what we are arguing is that these are cultural wars from other countries that are being exported to Ghana. Where is the hysteria coming from? What is the fear? We've just had a census. Hopefully it will tell us what proportion of our population is gay, if they did ask that kind of question. So what is the fear? When we look at the spectrum of our problems, the issues in this country, whether it's about teenage pregnancy, whether it's about corruption, whether it's about unemployment, child abuse, gender-based violence. These are our big issues. Why are we not agitating against this? What is the problem? If we are sure in our own faith as Christians, what is the problem? Jesus is asking us to love as he loved. When the adulterous woman was brought and people picked up stones, what did Jesus say? He who has no sin, let them cast the first stone. So we do not really understand this hysteria that is being kicked up, as if we have some barbarians at the gate. The country is being invaded by gays and lesbians, and we must do something. Where is this hysteria from? And this is where the World Congress of Families comes in. They have an agenda which they have been exporting to different countries. Isn't it significant? They have a congress here in October or November 2020. Soon after that, and we all wanted private members to be able to bring bills in Parliament. But those bills should expand our freedoms. They should close the gaps where government is not acting in a way that stifles our freedoms. What is interesting, the first private members bill, the amendment to the Road Traffic Act, what was it trying to do? Protect unborn fetuses. Again, where does this come from? And then it is followed up by this promotion of proper. Who is to define what is proper? I have seen debates where people are even talking about sexual acts and sexual positions and what is proper, etc. Who are you to go into somebody's bedroom to legislate what they must be doing? We're talking about consenting adults. We are not talking about children. Any abuse of children is an offense. We are all against it. We are saying that we need to harness our energies elsewhere. So we are not interested in making it, revising it. We have a country where people are dying from communicable and non-communicable diseases. We cannot deal with it. And yet we are pretending that we can do conversion therapy. It's a joke. Even in countries with high-end medical services. This is a very fraught area. And in the recent past, there have been a lot of exposure in the West by people who have undergone these so-called conversion therapies to show that they were lied to, they were manipulated, etc. And we live in a country where people are dying from malaria, from other communicable diseases, and now COVID, etc. We're not concerning ourselves with it. Now we want to convert gays into what? So please, we are saying that it is really a diversionary tactic. The Parliament win popularity, cheap popularity, and to make it like if you don't do this, you are not Christian enough, you are not Muslim enough. That is not the essence of religion. This is not the love that Jesus was preaching to us, or Muhammad or anybody was preaching to us, to love our neighbor. He said to love your neighbor. You are not supposed to judge your neighbor. God just said love your neighbor. He didn't say judge your neighbor. So I think that we really are talking about how we create tolerant and inclusive societies, not by talking about what is taboo and what is inhuman, but what we, the constitution that we have made for all Ghanaians, including gays and lesbians. We are not saying that anybody should be converted into gays or lesbians, or that you should like them, but you have to tolerate them. Some of the things that have happened when the people who were arrested in Ho and kept in prison for 3 weeks, the testimonies that they have given are horrendous. Some people have talked about police officers kicking them on the mouth, really subjecting them to torture. We should be ashamed as Ghanaians that we are allowing these practices to go on. That if there were not courageous lawyers, those people would have languished in jail. For what offense? Meanwhile, people who abuse children, they are allowed to go scot-free. People who beat their wives, what happens to them? You have a settlement, 300 cedis is paid to the family, and then the girls suffer for the rest of their lives. Why are we not outraged by this? This is happening every day. It is reported every day. Why are we not outraged by these kinds of issues? So we don't know what revision needs to be done. We are saying that it is not necessary. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Yes, Kojo.
So Mr. Kotuampao talked about the condition necessary for you to limit fundamental human rights. And I think this is a very important area, an important discussion that people have to understand. Often when you are discussing this, people will throw in, but that's why we have armed robbers, we are criminalized armed robbers. You see, the point is that you are criminalizing armed robbers because of the harm that they cause to others. The same issue that you criminalize rape, or even with minors, it's a question of capacity. Because a minor cannot consent to sexual relations, we criminalize that to protect them. So there's a distinction. When somebody says, I have this sexual orientation, and they are in their home with another consenting adult, engage, sometimes there's so much focus on the sex, and that I don't also understand, this obsession with sex when it comes to LGBTQ issue. As if, the whole conversation about people expressing those identities is all about having sex or something. Even heterosexual marriages, and it's not about sex. People talk about companionship and all kinds of things. But you see, when you are deliberately trying to dehumanize somebody, then you create these things. Oh, people are walking around. So that is why it doesn't make any sense why you can be so inhuman to think about putting people in jail for 5-10 years because they happen to express a sexual orientation. Yeah. That even a father or a mother cannot host them. They can't give them shelter. That is the part of it that really shocks me as a person, that somebody sat down, and we are talking about Christians, so we are talking about people with faith who are sitting down and saying that this is all right, that you take them to jail, to incarcerate them, deny them their freedom because they are expressing, only because you don't agree with that sexual orientation. If we were to proceed with doing public policy that way, today I'll come, we are in the majority, Christians are 80, whatever. We decide that we don't like Buddhism. right? We don't have to show any public justification why Buddhism is a threat to society. Because we have decided as a majority, from today, if you practice Buddhism, we'll jail you for 10 years. Or Twitter just came into this country. Somebody comes from Europe, expresses that sexual orientation. Now we are enjoined by this law, if it passes, to report. And therefore, if we see two men holding hands in a hotel in Kempinski, we report to the police that there is LGBT activity going on, and they should go and raid. The people who are coming to work or coming to have investments in this country, what are they supposed to do? I think we are not thinking about this carefully, right? And so I really, as Professor Kakari said, not most people would have time to read this legislation. All they know is that I don't like LGBT. I'm afraid my child or my whatever is going to become gay. And the parliament is trying to do something about it. And therefore, I support it. That is not what this legislation is about. This legislation is far-reaching. It's going to be seminal, because once that path is open, then, just pray that you are not in a minority on some issue. Before you wake up one day, you are no more a citizen of Ghana, you are a second-class citizen, your rights are limited. So we have to be very, very, very careful in this country when we are dealing with these issues. And if you are going to invite the state to step into private matters, you have to have a strong public justification. We all have our differences. The things you believe, the culture, the sort of values you have, I don't have, because it doesn't interfere with my ability to enjoy my fundamental rights. But if you are going to ask the state to come and regulate our private ideas and so on and so forth, then you have to have a strong public justification for it. It's not just because you believe in something. And this is the core of the issue. And once you open that door, as it happened in other countries, it will be a very difficult place to live in. So we are inviting you to really take your opportunity to read the main submission we made. We have copies summarized for the media. But we know media people, they like the quick ones. But please, take an opportunity to educate yourself as well, because I think you can only communicate better when you have educated yourself. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Again, one of the things, yes. Yeah. Any more questions from you? Yeah. Anybody else? Any more? Yes, please. Yes.
Thank you. I think that Parliament itself invited memoranda, and that's why we've submitted this memo. We're not the only ones who have submitted memos. A lot of other people have submitted memos pointing out the problems with this bill. So we expect that Parliament would do its job, read the memos, and advise themselves. And if they are objective and they engage with the arguments most of these memos are saying practically the same thing, reinforcing practically the same thing. Then Parliament, as lawmakers, will understand that what they want to do is violating our Constitution, and they'll decide to drop the bill. I don't think it should be a problem for Parliament to drop the bill after they read and they go through this process. In fact, we do not think that Parliament has really engaged with the bill yet, and we are not prejudging the issue. You know, the Speaker of Parliament, in our Parliament, the Speaker is not an elected member. He's a referee, okay? So I don't want to say anything that might lead me into contempt of Parliament. But it's like a football match, right? Before the game. Yesterday, all of you were watching Man City and Liverpool. Huh? So the referee cannot decide that Man City will win or Liverpool will win. The Speaker is supposed to preside over it. In a way, his private views do not matter, okay? So it is Parliament that is supposed to be seized of the matter and to argue it. But Parliament is one body. It's important. The bill is before it, but it is not the only body. When Parliament finishes, it has to go to the presidency for assent. There are also the courts in this country. So there are a whole lot of Council of State, the courts, etc. There are a whole number of bodies. And as has been argued, there are many things that people may wish, but that doesn't make it law, or that does not make it right. I think that we have to be careful. There's a lot of sentiment and emotions involved here. Nobody, we have said that we respect the right of religious people to be, because of their religious views, not to like this or that. It is about tolerance. And it is not about the majority, that once the majority decides, that is it. The Constitution protects the rights of minorities as well. So how are the minority rights being protected? It is not an invitation to anybody to become gay or lesbian. That is not the issue. But we are very concerned because imagine, in the last few months, I've heard stories about young people, and I worry that some young people, every day we read in the newspapers about suicide among young people. Young people may be tempted to commit suicide because they are suspected of being gay. In Tree, they say gay, or yebia, gay. So there are people who are withdrawing into their shells, they are being suspected. How would we feel if we know that we have led young people to take this drastic action to end their lives because we have created a hostile environment for them? And we all live in communities. We live in homes. We know, as has been pointed out in the memo, that sexual identities are not that clear for some people. You know, this is the preference of some people. And we should respect their right to live that are enshrined in the Constitution. So each of the provisions in the bill has to be read against what is in the Constitution. And we know that the Constitution is paramount, okay? So how does this, the right of a parent to have, or any of us, to invite whoever we choose into our homes, that is part of our right. And if we are to be sanctioned because that person is gay, that is intolerable, and that is not what the Constitution provides. Any more questions?
Any more questions, please? Yes, please. Yes.
Can you speak more
Come
clearly?
forward a bit. Yeah. They are not. Yeah, that this bill is not homegrown. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Now, we know that this debate about homosexuals and not being homosexual, it is a debate that goes on all over the world with a lot of people against a lot of people. So now, I don't know the basis that you're saying that this group is being funded by what, but if indeed that is one side of the debate, if you are saying that
Okay.
So the idea is that there are two sides. So no, it's just a question. Is there any basis for you saying that who's being funded by the one who's best sexual? And if there is, can you also say that they're also not funded, being supported by the other side? I think it's a legitimate question.
No. Every question is legitimate. That's precisely the point we are making.
I mean, thank you very much for your question. I think all of us here, and those who have signed this document, have a long history of fighting for human rights and democracy in this country. Long history. 40 years plus, from when we were students and so on. People made huge sacrifices. Okay? So I think it's important to underline that. Secondly, a number of points have been made here. And I think the thing about whether people have shared views with others in or outside the country is secondary. Because the heart of this press conference, it's about what this bill means for the Constitution and for the rights of people. I think it would be extremely unfortunate if a lead report from this event, for example, focuses on secondary, tertiary issues. There's a primary, if you follow the argument of the press conference and the document sent to Parliament, it is solidly founded on the principles, the provisions, the spirit, and the logic of the Constitution of the Republic of Ghana. The Ghana government substantially depends on foreign aid to run this country. The Ghana government, successive governments are inviting foreign investors to come to this country to put money into this economy for the benefit of Ghanaians. So yes, foreigners have a role in this debate, directly or indirectly, not in relation to us, but in the idea, the battle of ideas. One of the points made earlier was that this is a contest also of values. But fundamentally, the values and principles and legal principles that our statement, the memo to Parliament, is about the Constitution. I think it's important to focus on that. So that we invite you to look at the arguments made about this. Because why is it going to Parliament? Because an attempt to pass a law. Every law has to be justified in terms of the Constitution of the Republic of Ghana. And we are arguing that the laws, that bill, comes nowhere near passing the test of constitutionality. That's the heart of our thing. And it's also important to pick a point Mr. Akutampa made about the invitation to governments to adapt good customary law or customary practices which are consistent with the values of the Constitution to become part of the mainstream. And also to prohibit customary law and customary practices which violate the letter and the spirit of the Constitution. Because the Constitution also is an aspirational document. In addition to its explicit provisions, the Constitution is an aspirational document which aspires to build a certain kind of society. So all the claims about culture and so on have to pass the test of both the letter and the aspirations of the Constitution. There's something I like saying, that we all can date when our gods first started drinking schnapps. Before the Dutch came here, our gods were not drinking schnapps. We can date when Ghanaians started thinking about heaven and hell as a place where we can burn. Before white people came here, our religious principles did not operate with Christian notions of heaven and hell. So the thing about culture, for example, is a fraught area to go. But the point we are making is that the debate about culture and values have to be situated in the letter, the spirit, and aspirations of the Constitution. That really is what we are inviting you to focus on. Because the debate about where Ghana is going is bounded by the letter and aspirations of the Constitution. I'm an atheist. But when my son comes to me and says, I want to go to church, feel free. My mother was a pillar of the Catholic Church. But she tolerated me and was very proud of me. And we lived in the same house. So it's important to be clear what this discussion is about. It's about constitutionalism. What fits in it, what is unacceptable under it.
Can I just add, back to this question that because we say that these people are founded by this, we must also be founded by this. Part of the claim of the people who are pushing this bill is that this is a foreign imposition. That is why it is important to us to say that the people who are saying, first of all, we are disputing it. We are saying there's nothing foreign about it. We all know the Kojobesies in our society. From when we were children, we've known it. And I'm almost 70 years, and I've known this since I was a child. There's nothing foreign about it. People who have never been to school, never interacted with any foreigner, this is their nature. So the people who are pushing this proper family values are saying that gays and lesbians are a foreign imposition. And we are saying, wait a minute, are you not the same people who hosted a conference with this World Congress of Families? And there is a history of what happens after the World Congress of Families come to your country. After that, these bills appear. They did one in Uganda. After they left, the bill came. Cameroon, etc. So that is the point. We are not pretending. You are sitting here, you are holding a phone. Was it made in Ghana? So this business about what is foreign and what is local, we have to be careful about it. Like Dr. Graham just said, since 1482, so many things that we have adapted from the Portuguese, we are proud to call it Ghanaian. So that is not the point. We're saying that it's a very selective thing. When you don't like something, it's foreign. When you like it, there's nothing foreign about it. So the same people who will be wearing their suits and their wigs and gowns will be proudly Ghanaian, proudly cultural. Okay? When they don't like something, it's foreign. But you can be sure that everything we are saying here, like he said, we have been doing advocacy for 50 years. And we will continue to do it. It's not because, if somebody is Jehovah's Witness and I support their right to be Jehovah's Witness, it's not because I'm going to go to their church, but because the Constitution allows them to practice their religion. And we are saying that the Constitution upholds these minority rights, and we will not allow anybody to take it away from us. It's not because somebody is dictating to us what we should say. And we are not talking about foreign imposition. It's the ones who are talking about foreign imposition that we are reminding them that we know who it is that they've been hobnobbing with. So I hope you understand the issue. Thank you.
But also let me say, it's important to inform our friend that we here are not funded by anybody. At all. I mean, that must be plain, because he said, could we assume that you are also? No. We are not funded. Look, if you know us, if you know these people, if you are a Ghanaian and you have lived here for as long as you're 30, 20, 40 years, and you followed public affairs and you know these people, you will not even contemplate that question, that we are doing what we are doing because somebody from overseas is supporting us. Nobody. We are here as individual Ghanaian citizens, free-thinking individuals who are here to ensure that our freedoms are not trampled with by hypocrites. This reminds us also that we should be careful. The bill is reminding us very clearly that actually it is not everybody in a democracy who wants and supports democracy. It is not everybody, even in parliament, who wants and supports democracy. And there are many or some in parliament, outside of it, in government, in churches, in mosques, who don't want democracy and who could use every means to undermine our democracy. That is what we are fighting against. Yes. Yes, please.
Hi, my name is Anada Constitution. I'm the Director of Communications for the Association. I hope it's okay to make a contribution rather than ask.
Yes, please.
Just because people
Do you mind coming?
Come here.
So just because people are asking about the World Congress of Families, I wanted to share that my organization published a number of years ago a report called Rights at Risk, which showed connections between the World Congress of Families and far-right racist and extremist groups in places like Europe. You mentioned Hungary. And these are countries that have deliberately created racist immigration policies. So just want to prove that groups here in Ghana aligning with those far-right civil society organizations are actually aligning with organizations that are proven to be racist and that actually hate black people. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, any more? Yes, yes. The last questions. Okay. Well, I think we have put out our statement, and as I said, we are pursuing this matter through a number of activities. The first is to send our memorandum to Parliament. The second is providing what is in our memorandum to you, the media people. The next step, we'll publish the full document in the Daily Graphic on the 20th of October, and then within that week that Parliament reconvenes, we want to organize a public forum, a public debate, hoping that the proponents will, if they are tolerant and support and tolerate other ideas, they will come for the debate. So please, we'll keep updating you on other activities that we'll be doing to ensure that this dangerous bill is not passed. So the media people can come here and collect copies of the... No, let them come and collect it here. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
For the media people also, there's some...